All right, I call this November 16th Board of Education meeting to order for Rapid City Area Schools. I need a roll call.
Kate Thomas.
Here.
Gabe Doney.
Here.
Jim Henson.
Present.
Deb Baker.
Here.
Clay Colombe.
Here.
Excuse me. Amy Poliski.
Here.
Brianna Funke.
Here.
Kieran Kelly. I believe he is absent with notice. And Abby Rutan from Rapid City High School is the same. And Hayden Benz from Stevens High School.
Here.
Thank you. Pastor Fred McDonald has offered to do the invocation tonight. Welcome. All right, would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? All right, I need a motion and a second to approve of the agenda with a change. The administration is pulling item 11B.
So moved. Second.
That's Jim, and I think Deb got to it before Gabe did. All right, we're at persons wishing to address the school board. We are going to make it only 4 minutes because of the amount so that we can get everybody in the time allotted. I do believe we need a vote on that, though, to change the time.
So moved.
Roll call to change the time from 5 minutes to 4 minutes.
Kate Thomas.
Yes.
Gabe Doney.
Yes.
Jim Henson.
Yes.
Amy Poliski.
Yes.
Clay Colombe.
Yes.
Deb Baker.
Yes.
Brianna Funke.
Yes.
We have 7, Madam President.
Okay, thank you. Just really quickly, too, Clay and Brianna, if you have any questions or didn't hear something, just ask to clarify it.
Okay.
First speaker is Florence Thompson.
Hey, now we get it. Good evening, Board. My name is Florence Thompson. I'm President of South Dakota Parents Involved in Education. I'm also a retired school psychologist with over 40 years experience as a psychologist in the schools. I'd like to talk a little bit about vaccines and quarantines. I'd like to thank the Board for standing in the gap for kids and parents. We certainly want parents to be able to make these important decisions without coercion. And so I do thank the Board for their steady stance and their steady guidance in this. First of all, this so-called vaccine is not a vaccine in the traditional sense of the word. It is a new genetic manipulation. And we're going to be seeing a lot of this in the future. There have been great leaps in genetic technology, and it's become very easy to manipulate the human genome. That doesn't mean it's right. This vaccine, so-called, alters permanently the genetic makeup of the child. or whoever else takes it. It also seems to apparently it's made to spread itself and to replicate itself. It was approved under emergency use only. It's some very thin evidence of an emergency at this point. Parents would be wise to protect their children against possible permanent injury and sterility. This appears to be part of a population control measure to alter the human genome and to reduce world population. The goals are by 2030 to reduce world population by 90%. Quarantines also do more harm than good at this point. When COVID first started, we didn't know what was happening, and that's understandable. We erred on the side of caution. We didn't know what we had on our hands. Now it appears that there really isn't any emergency anymore. There's really no point in quarantining people that are asymptomatic. The CDC does not have a record of a single case of an asymptomatic person spreading COVID. You can't people who are vaccinated with the so-called vaccine can spread COVID because they are now genetically producing the viruses. So there you are. I have a personal experience with a family who is on quarantine, and the person who was vaccinated is testing positive and has no symptoms but cannot go back to work because they're testing positive. Also, the young person in the home can't go to school even though that person has never had any symptoms and is not testing positive. So the quarantines have done major damage, psychological damage, and economic damage to our communities. So we really need to get out of this emergency mindset and stop being stampeded and panicked into ridiculous decision making.
Thank you. That was exactly 4 minutes. Sue Padal.
Good evening, Board. My name is Sue Padal. I'm a teacher in the Rapid City Area School District. I also serve as the RCEA President. My intentions of coming up and speak tonight had to do with the resolution for the COVID testing and the vaccine, of which I have to say, if you've not heard from educators, staff, family members, the testing provided a much easy and convenient way of testing in a year that's not been easy or convenient at all. So I was glad to see that it was pulled from the agenda. Secondly, I'd like to thank you for the jobs that you do and wish you a happy American Education Week. The work that you do is necessary and appreciated, but I also hope that you truly believe in taking what your constituents and the employees of this district have to heart. Thirdly, I'd like to say, well done, Mr. Sassy, on your World Championship. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll have to hear more about that. Tom Udiger.
Good evening, Board. My name is Tom Udiger, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I'd like to take the opportunity to remind you members of the school board that you were brought into office in this last election by an overwhelming vote of the citizens of Rapid City. We did not like the direction of the previous board had set out, and we wanted to change. And you are that change, the new board. We support you, and we ask you to not focus on the criticism that might come, but press forward towards the vision you have for our schools. I want you to encourage you to take a look at curriculum. I believe it's flawed, and that's nationally. According to an article in Insider by Mac DeGruin, the U.S. spends more on education than any other nation in the world. We're number one, we're tops. Pew Research states that the U.S. ranks 38th in math and 24th in science. That's out of 71 countries tested. The Program for International Student Assessment confirms these numbers. 2 decades ago, the U.S. ranked sixth internationally. First in spending and middle of the road in results does not equate. We can do much better than that. And I think a majority of that problem is in curriculum. And I know you have a lot on your plate, and you're very busy, but I think that issue is so important, and I think it's the board's opportunity to make a difference here. I think you're doing a great job, and I just encourage you to hang in there.
Thank you. Dr. Eldon Rice.
Good evening, Board. I'd like to relate a story. I know a physician in town who was giving physicals, here in Rapid City, was giving physicals to a young man, school-age young man. When he's done with the physical, he left, and the mother said, "You get back in there. He believes that he's a woman, and you ask him about his menstrual cycles and make sure that they're normal." So, where are we going with this? I'm not kidding, by the way. You know, are we going to be penalized for using the wrong pronoun? I've heard the story, and I'm not sure it's true, but a teacher got fired for forgetting to use the right pronoun. Our church doctrine says that you have a sex before you're born. God creates you and you're a sex, and when you're resurrected, you will be the same sex. Are we allowed to say that in school? Or are you going to try to squash the 2 First Amendment rights, the right to speech, to free speech to disagree, and my religious rights? What's going to be the penalty for the misuse? Now, you think it's not a big deal. My daughter, we had a big court case in California. My daughter blurted out in class, because she was being teased about her religion, "Oh, that's so gay." Well, she got a referral from the Gay Student Union advisor, and they called that sexual harassment. She's 14 years old. Well, you might imagine that I ended up taking that to court. It was a long and ugly, drawn-out court battle that went on for years. Other things happened. So I think that was a foolish reason. Other kids had said it and weren't punished. We'd been an odds with this teacher before, in public and in private. And she decided that she would use her position or use her authority to pick on my daughter. So this is why I want, this isn't theory to me. I want you to get a policy about what's going to happen here. If we don't like it, you will lose kids. I know people, I don't know how many, I don't have any idea. But you're dancing around the issue. You say you have a policy about the transgender bathrooms, and you don't have one, okay? I've been told, and I'm glad Phil's here, because we talked about this, I've been told by a high-ranking person that we have unwritten policy that supersedes written policy. You would all be surprised who said that to me. And I filed a formal complaint, and Mr. Jensen was with me, and I asked for it to be resolved higher up, and it was gone. It just disappeared. So when we come to you and say, well, what do we do when there are violations and wrongdoing and we can't get anywhere? I have several formal complaints in my office with time stamped and signed that never got addressed. You don't have a record of them being addressed. one way. Now, it's gotten better, but this is why parents come and say, you know, we don't have any recourse. So that's why we elected you partly. Hopefully, we can get some sensible policies. Now, the transgender bathroom issue. We've had a report of a couple sexual assaults back east. Currently the policy in the state, is my wife spent some time in the bathroom, unfortunately, with a transgendered man. I called the police. Said, you have to go in there with her to protect her. So if you're going to let transgenders go in the bathroom, and you really don't know, it could be a man pretending he wanted to be a transgender or pretending to be one and wanted to go in there or whatever. There's no real definition of who gets to go in. Are they going to be able to have a male escort? Because right now that's what happens. If a transgender man goes into the bathroom, I'm going to follow him in there. And there's nothing the law can do about it. So now you got minors at a public institution. What are you going to do? So there's no policies in place now. You told us there's policies. I want to see them. And if I'm wrong, then I'll publicly say you did have them. But so far, I've seen nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Gross.
Hi there, my name is Sarah Gross. I've spoken to you as a board before. I am a parent of a wonderful 5-year-old and a beautiful 7-year-old who attend school here in the district. I'm also a teacher. I think that it's really important to talk about the testing situation, even though it's been removed from the agenda, and I have used it a couple of times this year. If you don't decide as a teacher that you're sick before like 5 p.m., it's really challenging to get a sub. So I'm kind of tough as nails, and I have trouble deciding if I'm completely sick or just a little bit, or if I should stay home. I don't know, maybe you all know right away, but I don't seem to know. So if I don't get a sub before I go to bed, I don't have a sub the next day. I feel as though the testing policy gives me some security to know that I don't have COVID and I'm not transferring it to a room of kids. I have used it when I get to school. I don't have to make an outside appointment. I think that it's saved a lot of people from being positive and in contact with children. So I think it's really important, and I think that the resolution distracted from a lot of our major issues in the district. And I think that we hear talk about other places and other things, but we've been in school, and so my actual concern was that the resolution is distracting from items like substitutes, pay for our staff. We have to address that. If we don't, we are going to lose teachers and not be able to have the class sizes that are desirable next year. And then our buildings. We have not gotten new buildings lately, and by having so much conversation taken away from the actual issues that our school district is facing, I feel that those issues are going to snowball even more. So I hope that you can talk to more staff members and find out if they value the testing, because I sure do, and it's free. There's no one forcing me to do it. It's completely voluntary, and it makes my life and my stress level go down to know that I'm not going to hurt people by passing on COVID. So thank you for your time tonight, and thank you for removing it from the agenda. I hope it stays off in the future.
Thank you. Phil Jensen. He's passed. Okay. Tonchi Weaver.
I really like this one better. Good evening. I'm going to talk a little bit about nuts and bolts, and that being the redistricting that we just saw at the State House last week. That is going to affect our school district. If you're not familiar with the process, it involves redrawing. Every 10 years they redraw the legislative lines it's going to affect other boundaries, including school district boundaries. They use a program called Dave's Redistricting, and I don't know if they use that same program for school districts and other lines that are redrawn, but I just want to encourage you because it will affect our school district to get involved as much as you can in the redrawing of the lines, because you know, and I'm probably not the best person to talk about this, but I was there for most of the process. It is a lengthy endeavor, and there is a balance that you have to strike. So with population shifts, and our city and area has had population shifts, this district is going to change too. So just a heads up for you. It's coming down the pike. I do believe that the map that was passed is probably going to stay in place. I don't know if there will be any challenges to it or not, but within a reasonable amount of time, this is probably something you're going to have to consider, and so please give some thought as to who you would like to be involved with that. On another note, I will say that there has been a lot of uproar, if you will, after the publication of the resolution. I read the article in the paper written by someone who did not mention that she has been a Monument employee for quite some time. That seemed to be a relevant fact. But I do think that withdrawing the one that you had is probably a good idea. I think it could be done better, and apparently you agree with that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Rocky Atkinson.
Hello, I'm Rocky Atkinson, and I'm back tonight after being homesick today because I just can't give up this opportunity to address this community and this board. I'm going to start with parents of students. I beg of you, parents of students, to find some compassion for your teachers. I have a staff that quit today while I was out sick because a parent called and yelled at her over the phone. For me, it doesn't really matter why she was upset. The outcome is the same. I'm understaffed, and I'm not meeting the hours on the special education IEPs that are in my classroom. To the board, I do want to thank Ms. Thomas, because over this last week I did see her in my school building, and whether I got to speak to her or not, that does a lot for morale to know that you were taking up invitations that teachers had given you to be present in the buildings and see what's really going on. I would encourage the other board members to do the same. On that note, I did think it was interesting and important to note that when you stopped by, you complimented my ambiance in my classroom, which I greatly appreciate. I try very hard to make my classroom a place where kids are safe and welcome and calm. I thought it was odd that you didn't actually come in. And so while I'm aware that you complimented the ambiance of my room, I was really hoping to illustrate for you all of the health care that goes into teaching with students with moderate and severe disabilities. The health care that we don't do because we're not a health care facility, an educational one. I think it would have really opened your eyes to what's going on. I wonder why it wasn't an option to make an attempt to meet me, considering there were 3 adult staff members in my room at that time that would have gladly told you where I was and assist in making me available since I was on the phone with a parent. I'm also glad to see that the testing and vaccination resolution is not on the agenda for this evening, and I really hope that I will not have to speak on the inaccuracies of that document going forward. I want to end tonight by letting members of this community know that I also believe that morals and ethics should be taught in public schools because they're not being taught at home like they used to be. I do support that, I truly do. But I also support the separation of church and state. Public school is federally funded, and as such should not be indoctrinating students into any religion. I disagree with the grandstanding nature of the invocations at these meetings. There are no prayers when these people meet privately. Also, the prayers seem to be very biased in your favor, and I doubt that is a coincidence. If you as a parent in this district feel the public school system is morally corrupting your child, private schools will happily charge you tuition to ensure that your personal morals are taught as part of the curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you. And last speaker, Forrest Cooper.
Hello, Board. My name is Forrest Cooper, and have been working to understand the finances of the school district. And in my efforts to do that, I contacted the school administration over the past couple of weeks to get some information, which I assumed was public information and therefore available to me. I sent 3 emails to a particular department and got a response to the first one, which did not give me the information that I needed. And then my 2 follow-up emails were summarily ignored. So I have to wonder, why is this? And the worst case scenario is there's a wall of secrecy around some of the functions of the administration in of our school district here. And if that's the case, then I want to know why. And I want to know how can I get information from the administration who has the records so that I can come to some understanding of the finances that operate this school district. Thank you.
Thank you. That was the last speaker. So we are on to sharing the success. There's no items, so student representatives, as we only have Hayden, go right ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, my name is Hayden Benst. I'm the student representative from Stevens High School. My report tonight will be brief, as not much has changed at the school since the last time we met. The knowledgeable team represented Stevens very well at the 2021 regional competition, taking home first place. A big congratulations to all of the team members. Additionally, the debate team competed this past Friday in the state qualifying round in Sioux Falls. They performed very well and will go on to compete at the state level. Volleyball ended their season this past week in a SODAC 16 matchup against Brandon Valley. It was sad to see the season end, especially for the seniors who will never get a chance to play the game again for Stevens. However, I hope that they were able to enjoy it while it lasted and be able to reminisce on all the good times they had while on the court. We wish the team well in whatever they do in the future. Lastly, new inductees to the Roberta K. Gaines chapter of the National Honor Society at Stevens were notified this past week that they were accepted. The induction ceremony will be held at the Stevens High School Gymnasium on November 29th, an event which all of you are invited to attend. As the president of NHS at Stevens, I would like to extend a huge congratulations to all of those that were accepted to join. Your hard work and dedication to your school and community is very much appreciated. Go Raiders.
Thank you very much for that. What was that date again? Can you? The 20th. Okay, thank you. All right, conflict of interest. No one's turned in any waivers, so now need a motion and a second for the consent agenda. Does anybody want anything pulled?
So moved.
Jim and Amy. All right, let's get a roll call vote on that.
Kate Thomas,
Yes.
Gabe Doney,
Yes.
Jim Hansen,
Yes.
Amy Poliski,
Yes.
Clay Colomb,
Yes.
Deb Baker,
Yes.
Brianna Funky.
Yes.
You have a 7-0 in favor of.
Thank you. All right, number 10, approval of the supplemental consent agenda. I need approval, or a motion and a second.
Is this for A and B, Madam President?
Yes, A and B.
So moved.
Deb seconded. All right, roll call. Any discussion? Okay, roll call.
Kate Thomas,
Yes.
Gabe Doney,
Yes.
Jim Hansen,
Yes.
Amy Poliski,
Yes.
Clay Colomb,
Yes.
Deb Baker,
Yes.
Brianna Funky.
Yes.
Again, 7-0 in favor.
Okay, and on to 11, first reading of policies. Only A is on there since B was pulled. I need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Jim and Amy, any discussion? Yes, Amy.
Can you just give us some background on the policy and why it's needed and where it's coming from?
Could you please? Thank you, Dr. Simon.
Certainly, President Thomas. So last legislative session, new statute went into place regarding alternative instruction and the participation by students participating in alternative instruction in activities. And so the State School Board Association, as a result, worked with several superintendents, legal counsel, et cetera, to draft model policy for districts. That really is what you have before you. Our old policy, once our new policies are adopted, will be repealed because they are very different from current statute. Very quickly, at a high level, I will tell you that the key difference in terms of students participating in activities previously versus this school year is that an alternative instruction student is eligible to try out for any activities, participate in other school-sponsored activities without taking any courses in the school district. The only exception would be, for example, if a student wanted to be in orchestra, since that actually is a class during the school day, that means the student would have to take orchestra as a class to be able to participate in all the activities related to orchestra. That really sort of is it in a nutshell. There are some other details in here, but really I think it's just important for people to know that alternative instruction students no longer have to register, for example, at the high school level for any number of classes in order to try out for football, basketball, wrestling, etc.
Go ahead, Amy.
I have a follow-up question.
Yes.
And in the legislation that was passed last year, was there any funding for school districts as they're accepting non-attending students in activities?
No, there is no other funding. The large school group superintendents had discussion about that, and we were opposed to asking for funding.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Kate Thomas,
Yes.
Gabe Doney,
Yes.
Jim Hansen.
Yes.
Amy Poliski,
Yes.
Clay Colomb,
Yes.
Deb Baker,
Yes.
Brianna Funky.
Yes.
You have a 7-0 in favor.
Okay, and we're on to the superintendent report. Please go ahead, Dr. Simon.
Thank you, President Thomas. On November 3rd through 5th, I traveled with Pinedale Principal Chip Franke and third grade teacher Bethany London to the National Blue Ribbon School ceremony. Congratulations again to the staff and students at Pinedale for this wonderful achievement. Last Monday night, I attended the cross-country recognition at Stevens, as did Mr. Doney, and shared some words of congratulations to the boys team who took first place at state and the girls team who finished in third place. Stevens also finished first overall in the combined boys and girls at state. I also recognized, as Hayden did tonight, the Raider Knowledge Bowl Team 1 for being the Regional Knowledge Bowl champion. This week, November 15th through 19th, is American Education Week. It's a time to celebrate public education and to honor the people who make a difference in students' lives every day and ensuring that every child receives a quality education. Everyone in our organization, from our custodial staff, food services staff, bus drivers, front office staff, and support staff to our classroom teachers and other licensed staff, paraprofessionals, principals, administrators, and school board members all play an important role in supporting the growth and development of our students. This week, I encourage everyone to take some time to reflect on and recognize the role public education has played in your life, your child's life, and in our community. And on a final note, for the record, I would like to correct some misinformation that appears to be out there. I want to be clear, I do not support a COVID vaccination mandate for students or for staff. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Simon. We're on to other. Does any board member have any other? Okay, then I will take this moment to make a quick statement. After the resolution was posted on the the vaccines and the testing, the board was provided with data and reporting information from the administration that is relevant to the testing portion of the resolution. Those additional facts will require further examination, consideration, and investigation. Therefore, the resolution was pulled from tonight's agenda. Thank you. We will now be going into executive session for South Dakota Codified Law 1-25-2.1, discussing the qualifications, competence, performance, character, or fitness of any public officer or employee. Thank you all for coming tonight. Oh, to go in? I do need a motion to go into executive session. Sorry, my mic went off. Jim and Amy, we need a roll call vote on that? Yes.
Gabe Doney? Yes. Jim Hansen?
Yes, ma'am.
Amy Poliski? Clay Colomb?
Yes.
Deb Baker?
Yes.
Brianna Funke?
Yes.
7-0 in favor.
What was that?
Hmm?